Hey guys, it's a beautiful Friday morning and today I'm going to be working on reseeding these trays. The reason I'm reseeding them is because I actually sowed some seeds about 2 or 3 days ago, but the birds got to them. So I came outside and I realized that nothing was popping up, which is fine because it takes a few days. But then I noticed that every single little tray had a small hole in it. And at first I thought it was my kids until I found birds outside, and they've literally taken all the seeds, opened them up, and pecked everything out. So now the trays look like this. Here's another one. Here's another one. I don't know if you can see the little dents in each of the trays. Those freaking birds. Oh my gosh, like look at these beans right here, pecked right through. And then a lot of other ones were just kind of broken in half. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to start over again, which means I'm gonna have to use up more seeds. And a lot of these things I'm reusing the labels on, so that's why they're gonna look a little bit funny. I'm gonna flip them around just so that I'm able to see what each seed was. And I have my box of seeds right here. I've gotten questions about how I organize them. And honestly, I'm not too meticulous about how I organize them. I have like my brassicas, root vegetables, cucumbers, herbs, leafy greens, summer squash, peas, winter squash, beans, peppers, eggplant, tomatoes. Really just the main things that I like to grow in my garden. Some people go all out and they have like sweet peppers and spicy peppers, but I have so many seeds that I feel like if I did it that way, I would run out of room right away. So I try and keep it as simple as possible. Also, one thing I should mention is I actually went through and direct sowed a ton of seeds about a week ago, maybe a little bit more than that, and nothing has popped up. And I'm pretty sure that the birds got to them because I've found little stems everywhere where the tops were chewed off. And I have a couple of other trays where the tops were taken off as well. So I'm pretty sure they probably thought it was like a worm peeking out of the soil. I don't know, that's just my theory, because there's literally stems everywhere and the birds have been in my garden now. Last year, I didn't really have to deal with birds. It's really this year. Right now, I'm really only starting some summer squash. And I'm gonna point out a couple of the cool varieties that I've really been excited about. The first is Zucchino Rampicante. I don't have many seeds. I'm actually gonna place an order from Baker Creek because this is all I have. And I thought I'd be fine until next season because the trays were supposed to take off until the birds got to them. So that's one variety that I'm really excited about. And then another variety, well, okay, there's 2 more varieties that I'm really excited about. The second one is the early bush scallop. I already have about 2 or 3 of these plants starting to put out flowers. So we're gonna be harvesting some pretty soon. This is one of my favorite varieties. It's really tender and the taste is spectacular. I cannot speak. But this variety is one that I'm having trouble finding online. It is Cosata Romanesco. And I bought it from Baker Creek, but I went on their website and I can't find it anywhere anymore. And the main reason I bought this one is because I saw a TikTok video where the blooms were huge, as were the leaves. Actually, the whole plant was just enormous. And I thought this variety would be perfect for stuffing with cheese and then frying up. Also, I looked up videos of other people doing it and it looked so amazing. I'm craving it really bad. But again, these are all the seeds I have. I can't find them on Baker Creek's website anymore. I found them from Johnny Seeds and I might purchase them from there because I really want this variety and I haven't been able to taste it in the past year. So I guess I'll just chat with you guys while I do this. Yesterday, I uploaded a video on soursop. I purchased the plant on Etsy. It arrived in great condition. It was really small though. I planted it up and it's been in my garden for 1 day. But yesterday, it was really windy out here. Literally, you guys, my avocado trees are like bent over in half. And a big portion of that, I think, is due to the fact that they were staked up at the nursery with that stake holding up the trunk. So the trunks themselves don't have a lot of strength to them. They're very flexible, so they're just flopped over. But my guanabana tree, or the soursop, is a lot more cold sensitive. So I decided to bring it indoors last night just to protect it from the winds because I just planted it. I want to make sure I keep it alive. And it was doing great. It was warm inside the house. I was happy with it. And then this morning, as I was setting up to film, I walk in the house about to bring my tree outside and my baby had yanked it out of its spot. Not only did she yank it out, she took off almost every single leaf. I'll show you guys what it looks like at the end of this video. She's really small and she doesn't know, but it did make me want to cry. I'm not even gonna lie, because I just planted it. It was $25 for a seedling. That's actually the same thing that happened with my coral vine though. I remember I had one coral vine that had made it the first time I ordered seeds because the seller didn't send me good seeds. And I managed to get one of them to germinate. It was doing great. I had it indoors, and then my baby went over and just yanked it out. And I found out a few hours later and I couldn't find the rest of it. I could only find little pieces of the stem. Ooh, these are gray zucchini seeds. This is actually the squash that I grew up eating. My mom would make calabacitas, and now one of my favorite meals to make is calabacitas en crema. It's really the only way that I can get my kids and husband to eat it because they're very picky. Oh, actually, no, my baby likes the squash. It's my husband and my 2 older kids that really don't like it. So whenever they're in trouble, I always tell them, okay, I'm gonna make squash for dinner. And they're like, no, don't make squash. And I'm like, okay, then you guys better listen. Okay, this is a colorful scallop. Oh, so I found these seeds at, where was it? I think it was Home Depot the other time. They look like the scallop squash, but they're a colorful blend. They look like this. I thought these would be perfect for harvest baskets. Like, imagine having some of these striped ones. I think that would look really beautiful. So I cannot wait to grow them. I'm literally putting the seeds in here, you guys, and there's nothing in there. The birds took everything. Okay, so when it comes to the birds, I've thought about maybe setting up some bird feeders, but I'm scared that that'll just draw the birds in, and if I don't feed them, then they'll start going for everything else in the garden. I was hoping that by setting up a bird feeder that would distract them from everything else, but just like the hummingbirds, once I started setting up more hummingbird feeders, a bunch more came into the garden. Right now I see maybe like 5 birds a day, but 5 birds can cause a lot of damage, and I'm scared that if I set up feeders, then I'm gonna have like 20 or 30 birds in my yard, and I don't want that at all. On top of that, they poop everywhere. They are really cute though, but I'm just scared. I don't want them around my garden, or at least I don't want them pecking out all of my plants. If you guys have tried the varieties Cosata Romanesco or the Zucchino Rampicante, let me know because I'm super curious about them. I could also try and grow the plants and then make sure that they don't get cross-pollinated with anything else by covering them up with little mesh bags and then just hand pollinating myself. That way I can save some seeds, and I might do that, but I also want to pick up some seeds just in case, because sometimes I get so busy that I'm not able to stay on top of everything. Okay, this one's the Cosata Romanesco. I also wonder why Baker Creek stopped carrying them, because that's my go-to place whenever there's a rare variety of seed that I really want to try. Some of the seeds that I also started are for things like the red Aztec spinach, which in Spanish is guanzontles, also some Hopi red dye amaranth, and then there was another one. Where is it? Elena Rojo amaranth. I haven't grown amaranth before, and I think guanzontles look very similar. I'm not sure if it's the same type of plant, but they do look very similar. I have seen videos and pictures of them in gardens, and they look beautiful. So I cannot wait to have them add color to my garden as well. Before I move on to that, I'm actually gonna do some red Malabar spinach. Where did I have that one? Right here, red Malabar spinach. So the cool thing about this one is that it starts vining up, which is what I want, because I wanted to fill out some of the trellises. That way we have leafy greens throughout the summer, because here in the desert at that point in time, I feel like they're a lot more expensive at the store because they're not really in season here. And I always feel like I have better luck with things that vine versus things that are more bush form. Now let's do the amaranth. First, I'm gonna start off with the Hopi red dye amaranth. This is what it looks like. Isn't that so pretty? And it really does look like the guanzontles that I bought from Strictly Medicinal the other time. The seeds are very little though. Look at that. I don't know if you guys can see them, but they're tiny. Let me see, Hopi red dye amaranth. So I'm just gonna sprinkle a few in each tray. And I hope that some will take. In the past, I've also gone through and then added a little bit of soil on top, and I might go ahead and do that here, but I think I'm also going to add a little bit of perlite. That'll just help to hold in some of that moisture without having that mossy green growth on top. I just saw a bird right there. They're on the bird feeders. Okay, I'm not gonna lie though, they are really beautiful. Hey, you get out of here. They're probably watching me sow these seeds like, oh, she's making lunch for us again. Now they're getting on the hummingbird feeders, and I don't want them to be scaring my hummingbirds away because the hummingbirds are so tiny. They're literally like less than a fourth of the size of these birds. But also there's been pigeons coming around here too. So back to the guanzontle. So my mom used to wrap the stems around a piece of cheese, and then she would get some egg whites, beat those up, and add the yolks at the very end. She would dip everything in the yolks, and then she would fry it up, and then she would serve it up with some salsa like drizzled over the top. It was really good. It was one of my favorite dishes growing up. And my mouth is getting watery just thinking about it. And the last time that I harvested some guanzontles, I didn't get to cook them up because we went out of town shortly after, and they were in the fridge and I forgot about them until I don't know how much later it was when I found them, and they were already really dried up. So the guanzontle seeds, they don't have the picture on them, but they also go by red Aztec spinach. My hummingbirds are back now that the birds went away. So I feel like maybe they're not letting them really come to the garden. Okay guys, so there's this one tiny little hummingbird that I feel is so close to landing on my hand. It sort of hovers over me and the kids whenever we're out here, and I could tell it's a baby one because it's really small, super fluffy, and based on the way it flies, it looks like it's almost barely learning how to fly. It kind of like flutters from one branch to the other. And the other hummingbirds, the ones that are a little bit more mature, they kind of zoom on by, and this one doesn't do that. It just kind of like barely flies around. It's so cute. So I've been coming out to the trees, and I'll stand there still like a statue waiting to see if it'll come up to me and land on my finger. And oftentimes it'll just like flutter around me and then go up to the kids, and then it like kind of goes away back onto a branch, and it's so close. I feel like one of these days it's gonna land on my hand. So oh, I also sowed some roselle seeds. Great, those are inside. The roselle or sorrel that I'm sowing right now is the one that I harvested from the garden. I saved so many seeds. I need to send some to my sister-in-law. I'm trying to start some in trays because I could direct sow them in the garden, but again, because the birds are eating everything, I feel like they won't have a chance to actually sprout before the birds get to them. Lastly, I did a couple of eggplants, cucumber, and melon. The eggplant I'm starting because that one loves the heat, and I feel like if I transplant it into the 3-gallon pots, I can move it around the garden so that it gets enough sun, but then it's also protected from the shade until it's able to acclimate a little bit better. And the reason I'm sowing some eggplant as well is because I recently picked up the seeds from M.I. Gardner, and they are the Casper eggplant. And when it comes to eggplant and peppers, we can grow them as perennials here in Arizona, so, or at least the low desert of Arizona. So I'm trying to get a head start on them because even if I don't get a ton of production because I'm starting a little late with the eggplant, by the fall they'll start producing, and then I can overwinter them for next year because I have some black beauty that is doing amazing. It's already fruiting, so I'll be able to harvest from it in the next few days, or maybe the next few weeks, I would say. But there's already like 2 eggplants that I can see right away, and I'm pretty sure there's more forming. And the same thing goes for my fairy tale eggplant, and those are really the only 2 varieties that I overwintered. So I want to make sure that I have every other variety ready to go so that next year I don't have to start more seeds. I've also heard that things like tomatoes can be grown as perennials, and honestly, I mean, the tomato tomato that I sowed last year made it, no, actually that one was a volunteer. It made it through the winter and it's still producing. So I might try to overwinter some tomatoes. The only reason I don't is because a lot of the times they're very diseased, so I like to start fresh. But I think for varieties that are like the bigger tomatoes, the bigger slicers, it would probably be a good idea to overwinter them. That way we can get a good harvest, because that's a type that you don't see a lot of people growing here in Arizona because it gets really hot very quickly and then the fruit doesn't set. With the cherry varieties, they set all summer long. There's no issue there. It's just the big slicers that we seem to have trouble with once the temperatures start heating up. So I've seen some videos from Haas Tools where they use perlite, I believe, perlite for the smaller seeds and then vermiculite for larger seeds like watermelon and just melon in general. But I ran out of perlite. I actually ordered some more from the Greenhouse Megastore, and that should be arriving by the end of this week, I believe. So for now, I'm just going to use vermiculite, and I think that should work just fine as well. The cool thing about vermiculite is that it absorbs water, and so the trays won't dry out quite as fast, which is awesome, especially for the seeds that were sort of sprinkled over the top. Oh, the roselle. I need to sow the roselle. I almost forgot. I'm going to use the mist setting. And then I'll go in with the shower setting, just so I don't displace the seeds as I'm watering them. And before I forget, here's some of the leaves. So it was completely yanked out. I went ahead and watered it a little bit more after I placed it back in the soil, and I really hope that it makes it. But as of right now, it's just hanging in there.